Welcome to this episode of the Structural Engineering Channel, a podcast focused on helping structural engineering professionals stay up to date on technical trends in the field and to help them succeed in their careers and lives. In this episode, we'll be talking with Roger Kodsi, a structural engineer at the Engineering Company Ltd, about his experience working for both small and large firms. Get ready for a fascinating conversation about the dynamics of fieldwork versus office work, the advantages and disadvantages of big firms versus small firms, and the importance of personal goals and growth in the field of structural engineering. I'm your co-host, Matt Picardle.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Holland. So let's jump into the conversation of the week with Roger.
This episode of the Structural Engineering Channel is brought to you by PPI, a leader in engineering exam prep for the PE structural exam. PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the PE structural exam the first time. PPI's PE structural course is fully updated and taught with October 2021 code references and includes new editions of their PE structural books. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. When you take a live online course, PPI guarantees you will pass, or you can take the on-demand course for free. PPI has helped engineers achieve their licensing goals since 1975. Check out PPI today at PPI2pass.com to see all of the resources available for PE structural exam prep. Again, that's PPI2pass.com.
Roger, can you welcome to the show first off, and can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do on a daily basis?
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This is an honor. I can start off with giving you a brief summary of where I started and how I got here. Basically, it all started from high school, where I did not know where I was going to go in life, and I was aspiring to be a musician. Me and my friends were doing really well in music, and then it came a time around where you had to choose what are you going to do in school and where you're going to go. So I basically got a push by my parents, like, music is not a career for you. You should go and do engineering, because I liked math. So that's how it started off. And then basically through university, I learned that I actually enjoyed math and I enjoyed designing and all that stuff. And then one thing led to another. And then here I am now working for a small firm, doing structural engineering, which I truly enjoy.
Awesome. So I just have to ask, what did you play, or were you the singer of the band? Like,
So
what was your?
because I initially started in a French immersion school, so everything was in French, including the math. So I was a lead guitarist, and then we were a band of four, and we were actually quite good. Like, we would open up for a lot of French Canadian bands, and then because my background is a little Middle Eastern and Greek, so it didn't really encourage me to pursue this dream of being a magician. So the next best thing is to become an engineer. So here I am. I still play music with my friends, and we actually just performed at my good friend's wedding. He wanted us to all play together for his wedding, so we did that, which is nice. But yeah,
Very cool.
going to engineering from a French school is very hard, like, because everything's in English. So going from French to English, the transition was really aggressive, and a lot of my friends actually like failed a few classes because it's not exactly the same thing, but it worked out in the end. Perseverance brought us where I am today.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool balance, though. With the engineering part, it's very technical, but then you have something with those creative hobbies or activities that you can do to kind of balance it out. I feel the same thing in terms of, yeah, I do the technical stuff, but if we want to get more creative, then having things to do on the side, that's pretty cool. And yeah,
It
along with
for
the
sure brought a very artistic side, because like musician hits a different part of your brain. So when you mix that with engineering, like, you start seeing things a little bit differently, it's a good combination.
that's the art, yeah. And I know you're working for a smaller firm now, but have you worked in the smaller and bigger firms as well? I wanted to see what was your experience working with those, especially between the office work and field work and in the context of structural engineering?
So the first job I landed, quote unquote, was in the field on a construction site. And I wasn't actually doing real engineering work. It was more like, it is technically engineering work, it was surveying, but it was straight in a construction site where you wear hard hat, boots, all that stuff, and you deal with people that like graduate from college or people that drop out from school. So everyone there is like rough around the edges. So engineering there is like not frowned upon, but it's like a sour taste in your mouth when you see an engineer. It's like, oh, you don't know anything. You're just an educated guy. So you go. I went there and I learned everything the rough way. But you know what? The work in the outside world in the construction field is actually a lot better than working in an office space. So through the outside world, I learned, like I upgraded and became a field engineer where I was able to diversify myself and actually apply what I learned in school, and also apply it with people on the outside world where they're a lot more aggressive and sometimes hard to communicate with because you don't always see eye to eye with these people. But it definitely shaped me to be a better person. And eventually now, after working almost 10 years in the field, eventually you want to trade. Like some people enjoy it, but I had enough of it, waking up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., working until like 6, 7, 8 p.m., sometimes like 10 p.m., sometimes even overnight shifts. Because when you work in the construction field, it's go, go, go. It's all about the scheduling, and it's a hard life. It definitely takes a toll on your body.
So you actually did like overnights in the field?
Yeah, like I did the whole night yard. I sometimes I would get there at like 5 and work till 3, 4, and sometimes I did an overnight shift where we'd have to have an overlap. So I'd get there at like 8, 9 p.m. and stay till like 3, 4 a.m. Which personally
Wow.
I enjoyed night shift because there's a lot less people, there's no traffic, and you actually get to like have your head down and kind of work in a calmer environment because there's less people there. So it's usually better.
I feel
Yeah,
really
you learn a
happy to
lot.
say that my overnighters, they ended with college. That's something I'm happy about. So that's
That's good.
pretty wild that you still did those working. So wow, yeah. What were you gonna say, Matt? Sorry about that.
It was like you were saying, I think it was you learn a lot in the field that probably the office engineers don't get to learn about, because not only do you get to see how they actually build it, but you get to improve your communication skills by talking to all sorts of people. Like you were saying, there's all sorts of different personalities out in the construction industries. When you're in the office, it's pretty much engineering types
Yeah, it's
things
all
like that. But
like-minded
when you get
people.
out there,
Yeah, everyone's
yeah,
like-minded in the office, so it's easy to communicate that way. But the main thing I've noticed is that people from the office versus people in the real world, they butt heads a lot because what people design in the office is not always feasible on site, and constructability is a huge deal, right? Like I can design something, for example, like a 6 foot beam, and on paper it looks beautiful. I can just have one beam and two posts, but like on the real world, sometimes I have like a wall there that I can't take off, so I can't just lift up a beam and put it in place. Like sometimes I gotta build the beam in place. Sometimes I gotta break it in half. So it's the field aspect of an engineering work is actually very fun at times because you will sometimes take whatever is existing that's already pre-designed, and then when you want to use it on site, it doesn't exactly work. So you have to redesign it with the guys on site to figure out how they can build it easily and efficiently while saving costs, and then relay that message back to the engineering of record, and you move forward. So the bigger the project, the more complexity there is. So it's a fun type of scope of work when you're on the field.
yeah, it's its
I
own
think
set of problem solving.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say, I think you touched on something really important there too, that maybe for like some of our younger engineers that are listeners to this podcast, it's like what you put on paper, it doesn't always translate. So that communication and that ability to talk to the contractors in the field and understand, you know, what's going on or what's preventing them from doing what looks so perfect in your detail, it's that back and forth that actually makes the project successful in the end.
Oh yeah. The amount of
Um,
backlash I get from that is like next level.
Totally. Totally. What about so you mentioned like big firms, small firms. What would you say are like some of the advantages or disadvantages of working for both? And like how would you say that sort of impacted your career growth or, your professional development?
There's two ways to look about it. Like some people really like the corporate world, which is big company vibes, and you just want to clock in, clock out, and then that's it. That's the main aspect of a big company. Small company is not as matter of clocking in, clocking out. It's more of like how much work can you do in a certain time. And the biggest thing I've noticed in both is that in a bigger company, commercial world, you're treated more like a number, and it's more of a production where you have this many hours, we need you to produce this much work, and that's it. So some people can do the bare minimum as long as this is what they achieved, and then it's done. But the growth aspect of it sometimes is very linear. Sometimes if you have the right connection, it's very exponential. But in, but the work environment is, again, it's a corporate, you're a number. So the relationships you have with people isn't the greatest. Versus small company vibes, it's more you work the hours you need to work to achieve something. Like everything is tracked, like almost to the half an hour type of thing. While the big companies, it's an hourly. You claim an hour you did something, but it's not really true. Versus small companies, it's actually, if I'm going to tell a client I'm going to spend 5 hours, I'm only billing the client 5 hours because it's a small company. It's not a lot of, it's more interaction with the clients. It's one on one, and it's everything's accounted for. And it's nice because you get to have a personal relationship with your boss if it's a small company, and everyone in the firm when it's a small vibe. Versus big vibe, you only know your immediate team, but there's like layers of corporation above you, and you don't even talk to them. You don't even know who they are. They don't even know who you are. It's all about personality and relationships you have, and if you enjoy that or not, it depends on a person, right? Small company vibes, you can work like 4 hours if you really want to, but then it only impacts you in a company, right? So you put more effort into it because it's you see your personal growth and you see how the company can grow. Versus big company vibe is not, it's you're just producing work to just move on the project, but no one really focuses on what you do as a person.
I've worked for both big and small, and I think my experience has maybe been like a little bit different than you, but I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I know it's I guess from my experience too, from working in the larger and smaller ones, I could see like the larger ones in terms of the numbers where I sometimes seen maybe like assembly line type of deals where maybe you're designing, since there's so many engineers, like the most efficient way to do like accomplish a project is to have one engineer just be the steel beam guy. That person just designs steel beams all day and that's it. Why? Because it's the most
Yeah,
they've done it and
efficient.
it's the most efficient way. Yeah, it's kind of I feel like running a big company, you need to keep all the cogs rolling, and I think this is from my experience. I think you might get more um, maybe pigeonholed into
I
like
was
a
going to say, yeah,
specific thing
pigeonholed into something.
because yeah, it's the most efficient way to do it. But for now, for me, I'm working in a medium-sized company where it's kind of a mix of both worlds. I have a small office, but we have big office resources. Um, but for me, I personally like the smaller ones because I think you do get to make an impact, like you were implying. More, you have more responsibilities. You can do a lot more um, projects, different types of things, and it's a lot more agile. There we go, agile. Where if you want to
Yeah,
work on something, I feel like you can do that better in a smaller company.
yeah. And in a small company, you're exposed to a lot of things. Like in a small company, you actually have to go from A to Z through a project. Versus a big company, like you said, sometimes you get stuck doing a repetitive task day in and day out, and like it sometimes gets really boring. Sometimes it gets exciting depending on the role you have. But like more so than not, if they hired you to do a certain task in a big firm, they usually want you to do that same task over and over, and then eventually you get promoted to senior, and then like vice, and then like it's a very linear growth, but in the same field, unless you get bored of that field and you want to change.
Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking about this more now too. And it's like the big company that I've worked for, like I'm not in design anymore. I'm in like the manufacturing side of it. So I think it is different, but maybe I haven't worked for that big of an engineering firm, the like design firm. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of dynamics there too, in terms of yeah, what type of company? Because I've maybe those are the trends for bigger companies, but I'm sure there isn't. Yeah, you include private, small, public. I'm sure they're run different ways, but I feel that's at least from my experience, but I know it's I guess we can't uh, pigeonhole everything into big companies or this, small companies or this. It is going to depend on the people in the company and also how they run their company.
I've actually worked for all three types. Like I've worked for a medium-sized company like you. Like it was a small company within a bigger company. That was my initial gig, which I thought was a lot more personable because I'm still within a small team of a bigger team. But again, because of the fact that it's a bigger head making decisions, like for the growth, like let's say if I wanted to move, like I voiced my concern numerous times during that time that I wanted to like learn more. I was like plateauing. I need excitement. This is like boring. And he heard me, my supervisor, but he can't he can only do so much based on whatever the seniority says he can. So there was growth, but not that much. Versus the bigger company, when I wanted to, like, they hired me for a certain role and I excelled at it, and I told them, okay, I want more responsibilities. But again, it's not. It's they have to go to other ones, and now there's budget that needs to come into play, and this and that. I was like, no, this project needs this. We need to hire that. I felt like I wasn't always heard, and a smaller company actually, the way you perform your work is how it's reflected on as you are as a person. So like if you perform well, it's noticeable in a small company. Like you can't sugarcoat it. Like the facts are there in your hand, right? And then you get rewarded accordingly. Whereas the big companies, sometimes you'll get noticed within the smaller side of it, but in a bigger scheme of things, it's they just see as dollar values. Like okay, this team performed well. They don't see the individual person of this team did well. Is at least from my personal experience, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of people. How would you navigate and maybe for a person transitioning from either a big or a small firm or a big firm to smaller firm, did you see any, I guess, did you have any advice for them in terms of how to adapt or acclimate to the new work environment?
I guess the main thing that I've noticed between larger and smaller is that in the larger firm, the main thing is that you always got to show up ready for the unexpected. Because this, especially for me, for example, when I worked in construction with the bigger firm, let's say you're hired, for example, for me, I was hired to be a lead field engineer. So my role as a general is to show up and guide the engineers on site to perform the work they got to do. So when you go there and you assess the situations, you deal it with your best ability from your own personal experience, and very rarely do you have someone that you can go to for guidance or advice because everyone's usually busy doing their own thing. So there is usually support, but the support isn't exactly by your side where you can just ask him for help. It's like sometimes you have to schedule a meeting and then you have to wait to get a resolution, and then it stacks up on things. Like it just adds up. Like, let's say you're dealing with 5 people in front of you and there's an issue here. You can't just go and deal with it. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you need help from seniority. And then you got to schedule them because then they have their own schedule, and then they have their own schedule to talk to other people because they got to go talk to the client. And for an example I can give you is, let's say there was something on site where it wasn't fitting properly, so I had to get something above my scope that I couldn't resolve. So I had to get a senior engineer to come and assess the situation with me. So I had to wait to schedule an appointment with him, which took a day. And then after that, then we had to schedule an appointment. Like once we discussed it and we realized we couldn't solve it, we had to get the project manager involved, which took another day. And then after that, another day again to talk to the client. So it was like, it's a small delays that adds up to things versus small company vibes. Like, for example, we're here where I'm working now. My boss is right beside me. So like, I have a question, I just turn around, I'm like, I need help with this. Can you help me? And like within like 10, 15 minutes, like we're able to talk it out, resolve it, and move forward. So the biggest thing I have is time management is the big thing. Like foreseeing things in the future with a bigger firm is a good skill to have when you're able to see ahead of time and try to predict the future, quote unquote predict. Versus small company vibe, it's a lot more personable where you can resolve issues right away. So in terms of growth, if you start small, go to big, you have that advantage where you can problem solve a lot faster. But if you start from big and go to small, you learn that skill the hard way, but you develop a lot faster, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. Would you say, like, in your opinion for structural engineering, we're talking about like changing firms and things like that, but even more so than that, do you think it's important for engineers to have like a goal in terms of their like professional, like, um having a goal set for themselves, or like a game plan? Like how important do you think that is? Like how would you suggest they start out, or how would you like say, just like in terms of planning, like what do you think about that?
I'll be honest. Most people out of school, like high school, university, have no idea what they want to do. Like, take me for example. I didn't even know I was going to do engineering, and I went to university and I just did a degree for the sake of doing it. And then I graduated 4 years later, and I just bummed out. I spent the whole summer doing absolutely nothing because I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I wanted to relax. And then September came around. I had no job lined up. I'm like, you know what? Since it's better just to go to school than doing nothing, I just went back to school to do a master's with no idea what I was doing. And then through that, I figured, okay, well, I need to figure out a game plan of how I want my life to be. And sometimes planning ahead is intimidating, especially when you don't know what the world's like. So it's not like a good thing to do is to plan like 5 years in advance. Be like, in 5 years, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to grow to aspire to become in those 5 years? And then find something that and guides you, or like have some milestones for yourself for those 5 years to get to that level. And then after that, you take a next step. Like, okay, I achieved this. Where is my next 5 years going to be? And the main thing is, if you're able to have like a really future goal, like for example, for me, I always told my friends, and they tease me about it, that I wanted to retire by 35. That was something I always aspired to be, just quote unquote retire, as in I'm not forced to work, but I want to work. Like I'm working because I enjoy it. So that to me was my future goal that I want to achieve. So a lot of people can have their own goals, like they want to be able to own their own company, or they want to be able to be a superintendent, or whatever it is that they need to be. I think that it's something that they should think about and brainstorm, like what they really want to achieve in their life, and then start having 5 years increment of milestones to get to that goal. The smaller the increment and then you achieve it, it's more rewarding, because then you see progression versus something that if you give a 20-year progress, you don't really have accountability of that sort, because like you'll slack for like 5 years, you'll do a little bit of work for 2 years. It's better to have small increments, because then you feel better and you can achieve a lot more. It's more rewarding that way.
So I have to ask, are you on track for 35? Is that
Yeah,
that seems pretty aggressive.
It was an aggressive goal, but I feel I'm on the right track. I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose my age, so I'll say right now, but I'm 33. But I feel like within the next 2 years, I'll be in a place where I choose to work versus I'm forced to work. And I feel like the last few decisions that I've done with transitioning between jobs has led me to where I am today. I mean, I also feel blessed. I mean, it's not everyone just gets lucky and things happen like that. Like right now, I get to work down the street from my house. Like by pure coincidence, I can walk to work every day. And not everyone gets that blessing. Great. So I feel like just things have been working out for me. And I don't know if it's the fact that I'm just taking the right steps in the right directions. And like I said, I gave myself like realistic, achievable goals year in and year out that led me to where I am today. But so far, it's been working.
Excellent.
So you mentioned that, back in school that you weren't really going into, you didn't have a job lined up, and you went back to your master's because you didn't really know what you were doing. You kind of just did it just for the sake of doing it. What experiences or moments changed that around for you, that where you kind of did that 180 and you said that, I'm going to go this direction and I'm going to get this planned out. So back in school, but what also in your professional life, what were those moments that where you grew professionally a lot and that I guess that took you to the next level?
I think that the main thing through all this is that I never actually knew what my next step would be. I always had an idea of where I want to be, but not how to get there. And like sometimes people have mentors, and like if you can ask mentors to guide you, and like people that's in the higher above you, like how they progression to where they were. But I didn't really know how to get to where I am, because I mean, my goal, quote unquote, is different than what most people want. It's not like some people want to be like an engineer or like a senior engineer. So it's easy to ask for things like that. But it's okay to be lost in the methodology of getting there, as long as you don't lose track of your progression. Like even if you're going in a zigzag, you're still moving forward. So it's as long as you're always making progress, even if it's not in a straight line, it's still good. And like even for me, like I you could say I wasted a year at my master's because it didn't really benefit me in the grand scheme of things. But it took me a step forward, which brought me to because I got specialization in construction management, which kind of benefited me in my work when I was working in construction. So that even if you do things that you think are not always good, it may turn out to benefit you in a way, one way or another. Because down the line, you'll think about something you did in the past that is applicable, and you can move forward. So there's sometimes in work when you do things that it works out without you even thinking about it, and sometimes it doesn't. I can't say everything's perfect. It's definitely in the world we live in. It's a lot of ups and downs. But the thing is, as long as you don't lose track of where you want to go and you just keep going straight.
Yeah, I think that's like a good point because I mean, I've listened to like a CEOC and different people do like career paths and things like that. And I think just sometimes engineers' brains think really linearly. And so we just kind of, that's what we think. And then you come to find out all these people that are ahead of you in their career, they didn't have a linear path at all. So it's nice to see that other people have kind of like those zigzags and the swoops and all the different things. And even if it doesn't feel like you're moving forward all the times, you're still gaining more knowledge and experience and all of those things that might help you in another role in the future, you know? Yeah. So in terms of like younger structural engineers, people that you maybe run into, what kind of advice would you give them as they are starting out their career? Would you and would you have any advice for them on how to keep themselves accountable, or suggestions on how to like maintain those long-term goals and like work towards those?
Yeah, I think the main thing is all about your personal work ethics and like your morals. Like I'll give an example. Let's say in a team in a soccer game, for example, everyone has their own roles, and you work together to get the victory, type of thing. So, let's say for the goalkeeper, his job is to protect, to save all the balls that come his way. Sometimes you let the balls in, and then it happens, right? So the same thing applies in life. Sometimes you will have hiccups, but as long as the main goal is that you're trying to win, and you'll have support around you to get to that, it's okay to stumble and fall, but as long as you know that you can, even if you lose the game, you can go and you can practice, and you can, the next game you'll do better. So the main thing is that you want to always improve yourself. Even if you fail at one thing, maybe ask for guidance. Maybe you need to get, like, let's say you do something wrong and then you need to be mentored. So you just ask for some sort of guidance or explanation how to do things in life. Because at the end of the day, no one's gonna hold your hand to get to where you need to be. It's all about your own desires. So you need to make sure that you are adamant of where you want to go and what you want to achieve, and then do it. Because if you need something, then go do it. It's no one's gonna come and say, "Oh, come, let me do it for you." I mean, that's just not how the world works here. So for young engineers, I'd say if there's something you really want, just keep pushing at it and keep grinding at it, and before you know it, you'll get better. It's just like anything, like swimming. Like no one knows how to swim right away, but little by little you become a swimmer. You know how to swim. You can flow in the water, and then the more you do it, you can start racing and competing, and you might be an Olympic. You never know, right? And the same thing applies with this life. Like you keep working at it. Eventually, you'll succeed if you are really animate of succeeding. It's all about your mindset.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, thanks for that, Roger. And my last question was, what about for people that are, or engineers in general, that are maybe more of the mid-career, higher career end of their journey? Maybe for me, like let's say I've been in the industry for almost as long as you have, almost. But do you have any advice for maybe middle management trying to go up higher, or being successful in your career at this point?
I think the biggest thing that people have often misconception is that it's okay to take a step back to see a future growth. So like a lot of people think that life should just keep going up, 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 and or sideways and up, but people are scared to like take a massive step back, but the growth might be exponential. Like an example for me, like I'd say that my old job, my growth was progressing very nicely, And then I took a huge leap of faith and I said, you know what, I'll take a massive cut in everything that I believed in and just see where life takes us. And that's the thing that people should do. Like, if there's something, if you're unhappy or if you want a certain thing in life and you're not getting it where you are, the worst thing you can do is just sit there and accept it. Like, I don't know what the word is, but you're complacent. That's the word.
Yeah,
You're
I was
complacent and
just
you
gonna
just
say.
sit there, and then before you know it, you're old and then you start regretting all the things you've done in life. Like, if you think about it, if you just took a step back and let's say you would need 5 years to regrow it, but in 5 years' time, you'll be even 10 times higher than where you were. Or even if you're 3 times higher or 2 times higher, it's it's all about the long-term goal, right? So anytime in your life, it doesn't matter what the age is, it's always okay to take a step back if you know it can lead to where you want to be. And sometimes being happy and getting to where you need to be, maybe you're not going to make as much money as you think you want, but you know what? Sometimes you'll be even happier than you ever thought it was even possible because you're doing something that you're actually enjoying. So I don't think I think people should break free from that stigma of being that you need to keep growing upwards and it's bad to go backwards and you need to make sure that you have all this money because there's a lot of uncertainty. If you don't have money, you can't live comfortably. Um, the world goes round and round, but at the end of the day, like if you are happy, the money will come. Like it goes hand in hand. I don't know how else to explain it. Just from experience, if you treat people right and you do things right and you're just in a good mood, things work out for you.
Yeah, if you prioritize yourself and happiness in terms of you can make X amount of money doing this one thing that you hate, but you probably
Exactly.
won't progress that far because you're in a really bad mood all the time. That's probably
Feeling
going to end
miserable.
your growth. Yeah, if you're miserable, you're going to make everyone else miserable, and that's probably not a good formula for progression or going to the next level. So yeah, thanks for that, Roger. I appreciate your mindset and not staying too rigid, because I think with engineers, I'm sure they all have that rigid path to their careers, but I think you're an example of, hey, take a step back, see what makes you happy, and you don't have to follow that rigid career path. There's a lot of different career paths and options that you can do, and make sure you're happy doing it. So yeah, appreciate the advice.
I was
Yeah,
going to say
for sure.
also, just to tag on to that, is like we keep saying step back, but the other thing is that sometimes it's just a different step, and
Yeah,
it's not necessarily like in the wrong direction, but it's a risk. And in general, like engineers don't tend to be very risky people. So it's like you
exactly.
have to be willing to just take that leap of faith, like you said, or take that risk, and then hopefully, it leads to more happiness or like fulfillment in your own personal life.
Yeah. There's
So
absolutely nothing wrong with taking as many steps as required to get to the place where you want to be in. It's nothing hurts me more than seeing someone that's complacent and sitting there and yeah, they make great money, but every day I see them, they're like not happy. There's like a lingering cloud over them. They're still stressed. They're like, oh my God, I have to go back to work on Monday. Like you want to find something where it's the mindset is not, oh my God, it's Monday, I have to go back to work. I mean, don't get me wrong, work is work. I mean, no matter how you might love your job, but some days you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. It's just normal. But you want to find a place where you're able to feel comfortable, where you're happy. You woke up like, okay, I feel good today. I can like go work and like come back home. I still great work-life balance. Everything just it's smooth transitioning. And it's like you said, engineers are very linear, and taking a risk is like a big no-no for like a lot of us. So I definitely encourage to take a leap of faith. I don't know if it's because of my background and like being an adrenaline junkie and always want to do something dangerous that I'm like I have these risks in me to want to jump and do things like that. But I definitely encourage people, especially young engineers, to not be scared to take leaps. It's the biggest thing, especially at a young age, to just experiment because you don't know what you can do or what you can achieve.
yeah,
And just
excellent
just because
advice.
you brought it up, I wanted to ask, what was your favorite adrenaline junkie activity?
Well, actually, the biggest thing I did at my first job, because they knew that I wasn't afraid of heights, so I used to go up to an 88th floor building to the very end of the ledge and
Oh
take pictures,
wow.
daily pictures of the progression. And sometimes I have a harness and we would hook up, but sometimes I was so into it, I was like, it doesn't even phase me. I would go without hooking up. So I would go to the edge, take pictures without hooking up, and I would go back and like, oh shit, I didn't hook up today. So I told my boss that one time as a joke, I'm like, I think you should have someone come with me just to make sure I tie myself, because I don't even notice. Like sometimes I'm just I'm literally on the edge taking pictures. I'm like smiling, taking like selfies, and it's fun. There's a lot of things I do stupid things, and I'm surprised I'm still alive. But thank God I'm still here.
Yeah, that
thanks so
sounds
much,
good.
Roger.
Just
That
just
sounds pretty
picturing that
cool.
88 stories, it just kind of gives me a little bit of like, whew, but like I don't even think I'm scared of heights, but that's pretty far up. So
Yeah, especially if there's no glass. Like I've been to those observatories on those high rises, and even that's scary. But when you're up there with like the wind blowing in your face because the building's not, I don't know how you do that one.
yeah.
I guess I'm doing it over and over and over. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Roger. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
thanks,
problem.
Roger.
It was a great time.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We would love to hear your feedback, comments, and or questions. To leave them, please visit structuralengineeringchannel.com. There you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, which is episode number 106, as well as any links to any of the resources or websites mentioned during the episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, we wish you the best in all of your structural engineering endeavors.